Among the brutal punishments from Middle Ages, one stood out for its cruelty and precision: the tongue-tierer. A tool not meant to take life instantly, but to erase a person's voice from existence. In essence, it is a small, handheld instrument made of iron or steel, shaped like a pair of pincers or tongs, often fitted with serrated edges or spiked teeth. Some versions included a screw mechanism to tighten the grip, while others were forged with curved hooks to pierce deeper into flesh. No matter its design, its function was always the same: to seize the tongue and tear it from the mouth, either entirely or in part. Unlike beheadings or hangings, which ended life swiftly, the tongue-tierer aimed to erase a man's power before ending his breath. It punished those whose voices carried too far: preachers who questioned the church, writers who defied kings, women who spread unruly words, and peasants who dared to speak of justice. In many regions of Europe, speech crimes were treated as acts of rebellion. It was employed across Europe between the 13th and 17th centuries, though its roots stretch far earlier. The process began with restraint. The condemned was bound to a wooden bench or post, arms secured, head fixed in place by a yoke or leather straps. The goal was complete stillness, not mercy, but control. Then, the mouth was forced open. Sometimes, a wooden wedge or metal gag was inserted to keep the jaw apart. The air filled with the metallic scent of iron and fear. The torturer would then seize the tongue, pulling it out as far as possible. The tongue-tierer was locked around it, its teeth biting deep into the wet muscle. At this point, there was no turning back. A sharp pull would rip it from its root, while a slower twist could grind and sever it piece by piece. Some records mention that the iron was heated red-hot before use, either to cauterize the wound immediately or simply to increase the agony. In other cases, salt or vinegar was poured into the wound afterward to purify it, a ritual act disguised as cleansing, but meant to prolong suffering. It was a punishment that balanced between pain and symbolism. The crowd wasn't there merely to witness a man's suffering, they were there to learn fear. Every scream, every drop of blood, was a sermon about obedience. Once the act was done, the victim was left either unconscious or writhing in silence, his mouth an open wound, his words gone forever. Those who survived lived marked by their punishment. Many could no longer eat properly or speak coherently. Some were left to beg, their mutilation itself serving as a warning to others. For in the Middle Ages, physical suffering ended quickly, but social death lasted a lifetime. The procedure's brutality was not random. It followed a grim logic. The tongue-tierer did not just destroy a body part, it destroyed identity. It removed the means to confess, to pray, to accuse, to defend. It left behind a living shell, a person robbed of their voice, the most human part of all. The device itself was brutally simple. A pair of iron pincers, heavy and cold, forged by blacksmiths who were often ordered to create them under royal or ecclesiastical command. Some models were fitted with jagged teeth on the inside to ensure the tongue could not slip away once gripped. Others had a small screw or hinge, allowing the torturer to tighten the grip slowly, crushing the flesh before tearing it free. That is how it worked, not only through iron and blood, but through fear. Because the true function of the tongue-tierer was not to punish speech, it was to end the possibility of speech itself. The tongue-tierer has no single inventor. It was not born from one mind, but from an age that glorified obedience and feared defiance. It came from the heart of a system that valued silence more than truth, a system built by kings, priests, and inquisitors who believed that controlling the tongue meant controlling the soul. Its creators were not artists of cruelty, they were administrators of order. In medieval Europe, punishment was not just justice, it was theater. The law existed to display power, not mercy. And in that theater of pain, every tool had a purpose. The rack broke the body. The Iron Maiden mocked the condemned. But the tongue-tierer did something different, it silenced the spirit. The earliest references to tongue mutilation appear in medieval law codes and religious decrees. In the Byzantine Empire, the cutting of the tongue was already used to punish political enemies who dared to speak against emperors. The idea spread westward with time to the feudal kingdoms of Europe, where lords and bishops ruled with both sword and scripture. By the 13th century, the church and state had perfected this cruel artistry. Inquisitors, tasked with preserving religious unity, required tools that would both extract confessions and destroy heresy. They turned to blacksmiths, skilled craftsmen who forged swords for knights and chains for prisons. Under secret orders, those same hands shaped smaller, more sinister instrument pincers, tongs, and iron clamps that could fit inside a mouth. Each device bore the mark of its maker, sometimes literally. In some surviving examples, faint engravings can be seen, initials, crosses, or symbols of the guild. To the blacksmith, it was work, a commission. To the torturer, it was justice. To the condemned, it was the end of everything. The Church justified the use of such devices through Scripture. The Book of Psalms warned against lying tongues. Religious authorities twisted those words into law, arguing that to cleanse the tongue was to cleanse sin. Meanwhile, secular rulers saw practical value in the punishment. A man without a tongue could no longer shout rebellion in the marketplace or speak secrets to foreign ears. It was censorship forged in iron. No blueprint of the tongue-tierer survives, but its construction was simple enough to spread across nations. In France, it appeared in inquisitorial chambers. In Germany, it was listed in the inventories of judicial torture rooms. In England, chroniclers wrote of tongues cut for treason or blasphemy. Each region gave it a different name, but the purpose remained identical: to silence. The people who built these devices rarely questioned their purpose. To them, it was as ordinary as forging a horseshoe. The blacksmith obeyed the Lord's order. The torturer obeyed the court. The priest blessed the act as divine purification. Together, they formed a chain of obedience, each link hardened by faith, fear, and duty. In the end, the true creator of the tongue-tierer was not a man, but an idea: the belief that words were dangerous. That the voice could spread rebellion faster than armies, and that to silence one tongue could save a kingdom. That belief, more than iron, is what gave birth to one of the most brutal punishment tools of the Middle Ages.